Lego fan handed over his entire Star Wars collection, $200,000 worth, to a brick shop to sell for him. They never gave it back. And now there's lawsuits, police misconduct, a YouTuber getting arrested, and a CEO who had to get in front of a camera and basically say, "Sue me," to keep the story alive. So let's head to the brick breakdown. Here's what happened. I'm going to walk through this step by step because honestly, this thing had so many layers that if you just heard about it in passing, you'd probably miss half of it. A guy named Brian Mansell and his dad, Ed, they had a massive Lego Star Wars collection, and I mean massive. We're talking ultimate collector series sets, rare minifigures, stuff that takes years to accumulate. And they decided, you know what? Let's sell it. That was basically Ed, the dad. His dying wishes was basically, hey, go and do this. And, he just had a health issue. And so he did it. And so they consigned it to the whole collection, the whole thing, which I would never do. But, this is probably the smartest option for them, to a Bricks Minifigs franchise in Kaiser, Oregon. So for anyone who doesn't know how consignment works, basically you hand your stuff to a store, they sell it, they take a cut, whatever percentage that is, you get the rest. It's a trust-based system. You're saying, here's my property. I'm counting on you to do the right thing. And that's what the Manzells did. But here's where it gets messy. And this is where, if you've ever dealt with a franchise, you probably know how this goes. The Kaiser store gets new owners. The people taking over, named are Law and Gorman. That's what's been reported. They inherit the store, the inventory, and the consignment agreements from the previous owners. And this is the part that when I first heard it, I kind of just sat there because the new owners, allegedly, their position was basically that deal was with the old owners, not us. So they did not honor it. So Brian and his dad ask for the collection back, but they say no because in the contract it said that the previous owners of the Kaiser store, they said, you still own it. We're just selling it. You can ask for it back at any time, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the legal ins and outs of franchise transactions in Oregon, but I do know this. If you have somebody else's property and you didn't pay for it and they want it back, at some point, it just becomes a question of, are you doing the right thing? Think about that. So at this point, the family's been trying to get their collection back. It's not working. And then somebody else gets involved. So Brian, he's going around talking to different influencers saying, hey, this is what's happening. And so they all try to make a story, right? Every single one that he goes to is trying to make a story out of it, and Bricks Minifigs shuts it down. But this YouTuber named Reckless Ben, and if you don't know who he is, and I didn't either before this, he does investigation style content. He's the kind of creator who shows up with a camera and starts asking questions that people don't want to answer. Ben catches wind of this story. He starts posting videos about it, and the views, they go nuclear, millions of views, because the Lego community, when it smells something off, we pay attention, just like now, and we don't let things slide, especially when someone's messing with $200,000 of Lego Star Wars. But here's where it takes a turn I genuinely didn't expect. Ben ends up getting arrested in Utah, American Fork Police Department, under circumstances that, at least from the footage I've seen, are, let's just say, controversial at the least. Now, I'm not going to comment on the legality of the arrest because I'm not qualified to do that, but I will say this. When a YouTuber investigating a Lego-related story ends up in handcuffs, that's not just a community drama. That's something bigger. Guys, we need to fight. We need to fight to make sure that people in our community aren't getting arrested for fighting for Lego rights. But here's the cool part. And then, and this part is that, honestly, I think is the most revealing moment in the entire thing. Bricks and Minifigs doesn't just push back publicly. They file an official takedown request with Patreon. Patreon, that's Ben's funding platform. That's basically a place where you can set it up with different websites and stuff to get subscriptions. This is where supporters back his work. And they also file a motion for a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction. That is what Bricks and Minifigs did, being it. So let me translate that. They try to get his income source shut down, and then they try to get a court order to force him to take down his content. That's not just we disagree with your reporting. That's we want to make it so that you can't report. They want to shut down Reckless Ben permanently. That's crazy. Now, here's what nobody expected. Jack Conte, the CEO and co-founder of Patreon, doesn't issue a press release. He doesn't have a PR team write carefully a carefully worded statement. He gets in front of a camera himself for 50 seconds, looking right at the lens. And he holds up the legal documents, and what he basically says is, we reviewed everything, our trust and safety team investigated, and we're not taking Ben's page down. He said that after a lot of legal review and a bunch of reviewing, they found out that he did not do anything wrong or anything. And so then they said, Bricks Minifigs, you can stuff it because we're going to keep him up. And so he's like laughing towards the end. And then I still can't believe this part. He dares them. He literally says, if Bricks and Minifigs doesn't like this, they can sue us. That's what he says. That's awesome. The CEO of Patreon on camera telling a franchise company they can sue them if they've got a problem. This video has 1.7 million views as of now, 197,000 likes, and it's 50 seconds long. A 50-second video from a CEO just outperformed most LEGO YouTubers' entire channels. And I think that the reason it's hit is because you don't see a CEO get in front of a camera and say, we're not intimidated. You see carefully worded statements. You see no comment. You don't see sue us. So I just think it's awesome, especially, it's right. I love Bricks and Minifigs, but this specific scenario is not cool. So what does it tell us? That Patreon looked at this, investigated it, and decided that Ben's reporting was worth protecting? I think it tells us there's something here, something worth paying attention to. So where does all of this land? Bricks and Minifigs corporate, the parent company, they part ways with the Kaiser franchise owners. The Kaiser store closes permanently. B&M corporate offers to repay the Manziel family, and I want to be fair here. That is something. If corporate didn't have anything to do with the original decision, at least they're stepping in now. At least they're saying this shouldn't have happened. But then again, they could just be covering up this just to keep their public relations. And you knew there was a but coming. Does offering to pay after the story goes viral, after the CEO of Patreon calls you out, after the store closes, does this count as doing the right thing? Maybe this shouldn't have even happened in the first place. Or does it count as damage control? I don't know the answer to that. I genuinely don't. And that's what makes this whole thing complicated, right? You want to be fair. You want to say they're trying to make it right. But you also wonder, if Reckless Ben hadn't made those videos, if Patreon hadn't say no, would we even be having this conversation? Would we? And the story is still moving. Coffeezilla, he's another big YouTuber, big investigation guy. He questioned whether the collection is actually worth $200,000, which is a fair accusation, a fair question. LEGO valuation is it's not as clean as people think. We'll get to that. The LEGO subreddit has multiple mega threads on this. Hundreds of comments. People are taking sides. Some people are saying boycott all Bricks and Minifigs locations, even the ones that had nothing to do with this. The Sacramento store says it's getting actual threats. Real threats, which I get the anger, I do, but threatening a franchise owner who wasn't involved, that's not justice. That's just more damage. That's just more hate. I feel like, they already closed the store. So if anything, corporate's the one that really messed up. I'm not mad at Bricks and Minifigs. I'm just sad for Brian and Ed. Well, LEGO put out a statement. Basically, they said, we're aware Bricks and Minifigs is independent. It's a legal matter. We can't comment further, which legally makes sense. But for the community, it feels like a shrug. So that's the timeline. That's what happened. But here's what I actually want to talk about. And this is where I think the LEGO community needs to have a real conversation. So block out all the other noises right now and listen in right here. This isn't just about one bad franchise.